and welcome back to Soaring Profits Thursday Night Live, where we chat with exciting and interesting people that are changing the world. And our next guest is no different than that. The great Stephanie. You guys might have known her as Stevie Knox, the wonderful DJ, or maybe you've heard her voice before on if you're as old as I am and you checked your machine and your next message is. She's been in the DJ world for a long time. About 20 years ago, she was suffering from anxiety and sleep issues. And so she spent some time researching how anxiety affects every part of our life. And so she compiled 35 of the techniques in her book. And she wrote a book called Goodbye Anxiety and Hello Freedom. There's a special art to being able to communicate virtually, one that Stephanie learned during her 15 years as celebrity radio DJ, Stevie Knox. Back then, she used her voice to hypnotize her listeners to come back every day. Stephanie now uses her voice to hypnotize her clients to make incredible life changes, such as the story that you just shared with us about a young lady who was afraid of heights and then was able to jump out of a plane and start a huge career. I'll let her tell you more about that. I am so happy that you are finally on our show. We've been hearing a lot about you. There's a lot of buzz in the hounds about how great Stephanie is, and we have to have her on the show. Thank you so much for coming. Stephanie, I'm all about motivation and life-changing experiences. I have changed my life several times, and I love these stories. I love the stories where you're in a moment where you're maybe unhappy or something catastrophic happened. I don't really know what your story is, but you're a DJ. You're successful, obviously. You're Stevie Knox. Like, that's a great name. Oh my God, like that is a DJ name. I've heard your melodious voice, so I know your voice is amazing. Why would you stop doing such an amazing career and pivot into something where you're helping others through none other than hypnotizing, which I imagine has a stigma. I know that for me, it's up here in Canada, you see the hypnotists on the stage making people bark and, and doing the roller coaster and stuff like that. So you're switching from DJ to like actually changing people's lives as a hypnotist. What could possibly motivate someone to do that?
All right. First of all, can I just say thanks, guys? I was so excited to just come and hang out with you tonight. So, yeah, from DJ to hypnotist. What? Right? So, I married my boss. I said my husband hired me at a radio station 40 years ago. We're coming up on our 40th anniversary. And we lived in South Florida. We went to Portland, Oregon, which was absolutely amazing. That's where I did my last radio show. And that's where I got the insomnia and blah, blah, blah. So we moved here to Connecticut. And shortly after we got here, well, first of all, we get to Connecticut. And I had been a morning show DJ in Portland, Oregon. So we get here. Oh, I could work at the local radio station for minimum wage, and my ego was just too big for that. So that was not happening. Or I'm about 2 hours outside New York City. Oh, well, I could go get a job in New York City, but then who's going to raise my kids?
Right.
So that wasn't a thing. So, my husband goes into liver failure, and I get that dreaded middle of the night phone call, like 2, 3 in the morning. This is Officer so-and-so. And my husband has driven into a ditch.
What?
Well, turns out he had gone into liver failure. And, you need a liver transplant or you're going to die. So, okay, now I went straight from high school to radio because long before anybody was talking about law of attraction, I knew when I was 14, hey, I'm going to be on the radio. And I made it happen.
Yep.
So I didn't go to college. I have nothing to fall back on, right? I'm like, okay, I've got 2 young kids. What do I do? So this was in like 2000, 2001. And whoa, technology. I could go to school to be a life coach on the World Wide Web. So I did life coach training. And in the meantime, I had learned tapping, which we can get into later if you're interested. In the 90s, when I had my experience, a horrible experience with insomnia, and I kept hearing Gary Cray, who came up with emotional freedom techniques, EFT tapping. In his newsletter, he was talking about these practitioners who were also hypnotists. I was like, I think I need to go check that out. And, I didn't know anything about my intuition at the time. I just was like, okay. So I live in the state of Connecticut, and I don't know what the laws are up in Canada, but here, state to state, it's all different for hypnosis training, right? So I look in Connecticut, and I could go become a certified hypnotist in a weekend. I was like, I don't think that's really quite enough training to be doing that kind of work with people. Right. Yeah. So I went further, and, again, this was at the beginning of the internet. I was able to, I found somebody brilliant in New York City and did my training with her. And on the first day, I was like, I knew what I was supposed to do. I knew that this is why I'm here in this lifetime, because change can happen in an instant. And we don't believe it. We think that, change has to be long and boring and hard work, and it doesn't. So almost 20 years later, I'm still here helping people make incredible life changes. And I love it.
Well, so Stephanie, again, thank you so much for joining us. This guy here just happened to jump off a platform. I'm sure we'll get there in a bungee jumping scenario. But when you
I just saw that.
Right?
Yeah.
Hey, that's his own thing. But when you have a young woman that comes to you and says, I've got this terrible fear of flying, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, we got the picture and everything to prove it. Like, this is a young woman, 19 or so years old. Am I correct? Yep. Tell me a little bit about this woman and how you're able to help her, and what kind of techniques you pull in to be able to touch that and motivate to be able to move forward.
So I can still vividly see her and her mother sitting on my couch. I had an office for the first 10 years of my practice, and I can still see them sitting on my couch, and their family was going on vacation to Mexico. And she's like, I'm not going. No, I'm not going. And mother's like, yes, you're going. Mother says to me, oh, we know exactly when it started. And she starts telling me this whole scenario. And I politely smiled and said, maybe not. Because with all this experience, I surely know that you can tell me, oh, this is when my issues started. And I can tell you with 97% certainty that that's not where it started. Because that's you telling me with your conscious mind, which is only about 5% of your brain. 95% is your subconscious mind. And to help you understand what the subconscious mind is, you go to sleep at night, that's your conscious mind shutting off. However, thank God our subconscious mind still has our heart beating, and it's moving our blood through our bodies, and it has our lungs breathing us. So our subconscious mind is really so powerful. That's where we can make life changes like that. So I work with her, and, she's very, very apparent. First of all, she's given me permission to use that or anything, as long as I make sure and say that she went on to build a very successful business as the 5-foot traveler. Beautiful. Like, there's no way, as, freaking out, she wasn't going to go on a plane to Mexico. There's no way she would have, gone on to be the 5-foot traveler. So
hang on a second. So she would not get on a plane to do the family trip. And now she's created a business traveling, showing people how to travel. And that's amazing stuff.
She has been to all 7 continents. She's been to, I think, over 140 countries. She would have never done that. So I love showing this because it shows what is possible, right? That, oh my gosh, I've dealt with people with fears and phobias, like, from one end of the spectrum to the other over the years. And, it's this, like, oh my God, it's this big, huge thing. And literally, she will tell you in 3 sessions, she was done with her fear of flying. And then, I woke up and looked at Facebook one morning and saw that picture of her, and I was like, what? Oh, great question. Are there some people who simply can't be hypnotized? So I'm curious, guys. What do you think hypnosis is?
what it is.
I think that there's some people that are so resistant, much like counseling and any other thing, that if they already have the mindset that it's not going to work, that it won't work. You have to buy into certain things in order for it to work. So I would say that even in hypnotism, like it's like counseling. So I'm aware of counseling. If I'm working with someone who doesn't want to open up, who doesn't want to make changes, you're not going to be able to do it. And I would think hypnotism is similar.
100%. And yet I will ask you again and have
Stephanie's
to
got
let it jump in. Tell me what
Stephanie's got that shit-eating grin, like she's ready to go there. You could absolutely tell she's like, no, I got this. I've got this. I love that. That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. So raise your hand, gentlemen, if you've ever driven somewhere and you get there and you don't remember the drive.
Absolutely.
Highway hypnosis.
Right.
Hypnosis at its simplest is a focused state of awareness. So we've all been in and out of hypnosis. It's just not what we think it is, because thank God for the stage hypnotists who kept it going in the years that, it was really like, oh, yuck. Thank God that they kept it going, but it's a focused state of awareness. So you're into a video game and you just like nothing else is in your awareness. Well, yeah, I might be hypnotizing you and you might not know it. We'll see. It really is, this. I had two guys. There's only a couple people over the years that I've not been able to help because, first of all, they're walking into it understanding. But way back at the very beginning, I got an article in our local paper right after I had opened my office. And I had two men in their 60s come the same week, because of the article.
Yeah. Those are my fave.
You're not going to be able to hypnotize me, little lady. And I was early enough, young enough in my career that I tried. Oh, I tried and I tried. And now, no way. I wouldn't, okay. If you're not into it, I can't force you. And, that's not who I am anyway. So, if somebody's like, okay, prove it to me. Okay, next. And we move on. But it's really exciting to me to be able to explain that it's not this thing to be afraid of, that I don't have any control over you. I can't, if you think about, we'll tie it in with how I was the first automated voice. You get in the car, you program your GPS, and unfortunately, it's not my voice that you hear, because, you'd hear my voice and, well, maybe you'd have a little problem driving because it's so hypnotic, but I wouldn't do that for the GPS. But if you think about it in terms of the GPS, you and I are working together. I'm like, okay, what's the issue you want to get past? Great. That's our starting point, where you are now. Now, just imagine, where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? And then we fill in the blanks. Most hypnotists, and I learned this the very first day of my hypnosis training, most hypnotists are reading a script.
Okay.
They have the script in little page protectors, so you don't hear them moving the paper. And our first day of training, she said, raise your hand if you know how to read. Everybody raises their hands. She goes, great, I'm going to tell you something. Most hypnotists are reading scripts. Since you already know how to read, I'm not going to teach you that. I'm going to teach you how to find the answers inside your client.
That's cool.
Bingo. That was when I was totally sold, because it was like, okay, there is no one size fits all, right? I worked with two smokers last week. God bless her. This woman, 78 years old.
Wow.
She only smoked 4 cigarettes a day and she could not stop.
Wow.
Like, okay, so here's this 78-year-old woman who only smoked 4 cigarettes a day. Then I've got a 40-year-old man with a child who's married with a child, has his own business, was smoking like a pack and a half, 2 packs a day. If I read the same script to them, do you think I'd be able to help both of them?
Right. Probably not.
No. And so, I don't know why I just thought about this. When I first started, again, almost 20 years ago, there was a local guy who ran ads in the newspaper, the little classified ads. And it was, quit smoking, 100% guarantee.
Wow.
So I had one of his clients come to me one time, and she said, well, why don't you offer the 100% guarantee? I said, well, tell me about that 100% guarantee. She said, well, every time I start smoking again, he hypnotizes me again. Okay, so he's hypnotizing you to keep coming back to him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
you're missing the whole concept of 100% here.
The whole point is
you should be okay with it. Like, yeah, that's interesting. Wow.
So you're talking about the subconscious mind. And so I've done a little work in that. So I'm very a promoter of turning off, of getting away from your devices, getting away from your kids, getting away from your family. I personally run. So I run a 10K every day. And while I'm doing that, you really are able to shut down your conscious mind, because you go into that highway hypnotism that you talk about, and your mind just flows. And there's problems that are rolling in your mind that you don't even know, but they pop up into the surface. And then you start thinking about them, and you can really subdivide them, really work it out. Or there's been a lot of times that I'm trying to figure out a goal or a plan, and I can really, while I'm doing that 10K, because I have an hour and 12 minutes to think, I can really find the root of the problem, find solutions to that problem. And then when I come out of the running hypnotism, it's more like a meditation. I come out of it with a solution that I can effectively work on. Is that kind of what you're doing for your, it's obviously not the running part, but is that similar to hypnotism?
It is, and it isn't. So getting your conscious mind out of the way, more of that, please, because our conscious mind is the thing that gets us most into trouble. And Albert Einstein said years and years ago that a problem can't be solved at the same level of consciousness that created it. So we create our problems with our conscious mind. What do? We talk about it, and we talk about it, and we talk about it at the conscious level, and nothing changes. So what you're doing by getting in the zone, you get in your zone, you're in a state of hypnosis, you're in that focused state of awareness, you're exceptional. You're really exceptional, because most people cannot do that.
Right.
Most people cannot do that. And, we're so chained to these freaking devices now that I think I saw the other day, somebody said, that a goldfish has a longer span of attention than we do now.
That wouldn't surprise me.
As a millennial, I apologize.
I was in Ottawa on the weekend, and I was at a concert, a Shania Twain concert. And I was there dancing, enjoying my family, having a great time. And the amount of people who were watching the show through a camera was unfreaking believable. None of them were present. None of them were in the moment. They were all like, I have to show someone else that I had fun. And meanwhile, my phone was in my pocket. I think I maybe took 2 pictures just of me and the fam, not even Shania. And because I didn't care about that.
You were present in the moment.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a concept.
Yeah, and it's so different. I had this conversation a while ago about even in the doctor's office. I don't know, you're not quite old enough, Stephanie, to remember doctor's office without phones. But we used to go into the doctor's office and we'd read a magazine. We'd have a conversation with the people around us and get to know them, and we'd share ideas. And now we go through a 3-second TikTok over and over, and we don't relate with our kids because we hand them the phone so they'll shut up and they play games. So it's hypnotism about being in the moment.
Yes and no. Yes and no. So, meditation, all of that, it's about being in the moment. Hypnosis, in the way that I do it, and I say in the way that I do it because it's more therapeutic. I don't do stage hypnosis. I get trained in it because there's a lot of money to be made in stage hypnosis. But even though I got trained to do it, that's not where my heart is. My heart is in being able to, yeah, okay, you see Sarah, and that's really great. But look at this little girl who used to have to be held down by two adults, kicking and screaming when she got her shots. And here she is. You can tell it's during the pandemic, ever so calmly getting her shot there. And her pediatrician has been sending me kids for over 10 years because she sees they're freaking out. They come back and they're like, a Zen baby. So the kind of hypnosis that I do is with a purpose. But that's not to say that you can't do it on yourself. I can teach you how to do self-hypnosis, which I don't need to teach you, James, because you're already doing it. That's what you're doing when you're running and you're emptying your mind and working out these problems. That's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sia, you're so cute.
She's the cutest.
Oh, yeah. She is. I love Sia.
Well,
I love
Pat
her.
is afraid of hot sauce. So I know that's kind of just a silly thing, but he's afraid of hot sauce. So I know you're going to show us. Maybe now.
Did you say hot dogs or hot sauce?
Hot sauce. He's afraid of. We're going to.
Okay, so we are doing
competition. Go ahead, Pat.
We are doing a promotional thing that we put together with one of the previous guests that we had here from Purple Tongue Hot Sauce, and we have partnered with Sia. We've partnered with Raquel. Who else? Zen
DJ.
Sandwich. We were just on with his podcast a little while ago.
Chris from Walking Tall.
We've got a few of us here that are doing this Hot Ones type hot sauce trial, and we've been promoting it. Summer sizzling. What do we call it?
Summer sizzle.
The summer sizzle.
International podcaster summer sizzle.
So I have said for the last little while, Stephanie, that us here in Canada, mayonnaise is kind of abrupt and abrasive for me. Like that's about as hot I can do. And some of these hot sauces, oh man, like these are like off the chart, crazy spicy stuff. So I think most people are waiting to see summer sizzle. There you go. Most of the people are planning on tuning in on the 27th at 7 p.m. to basically watch me die. So that's where, this is segued nicely. So maybe if you can have something that you can help me work through my fear of death. I think that's the bigger one. I don't think it'll be hot sauce. I think it's a fear of, or maybe it's the 28th that I'm afraid of really. So
no, but seriously, maybe you could show us a technique. Like you said that there are some that you can do super quick. You can do yourself. I'd be really interested. There's a lot of people in the comments wondering, how do you do this?
All right. So first of all, let me just say, this would be something, if you really want to do the hot sauce, you and I'll do it. We'll just play together. Okay.
Cool. Yeah.
But if you don't want to do it because it's going to be more fun online, I totally get that. So I won't be offended. Chances are you don't have a tennis ball nearby, but do you have something you can grab other than a cell phone? Water bottle's perfect. Sorry, James, I should have given you a heads up on that.
Got it.
Sorry. Okay.
What is it?
So,
dog toy.
Fire.
Okay. All right. So I want you both to think about it. Anybody who's watching, grab something too, so you can do this with. Everybody think about something that causes you stress. Not hard. We all have something, right? Content free. I don't need to know what it is. Give it a number in your mind, 1 to 10. Just don't even tell me now. Put it in the back of your mind. And then start tossing your thing back and forth. And we're going to do this for a little bit. And I'm going to ask you, I'll stop, but I'm going to ask you to keep going because I'm going to explain what this is. Because this is like, okay, well, what does this mean, right? This in my book is called Crossing the Midline. And it's because you can see we're crossing the midline of our body, but more importantly, we're crossing the midline of the brain. And so when we're anxious, frustrated, angry, whatever, have an addiction, have a craving for that, there's one side of our brain that is more active than the other. So by doing this, crossing the midline, this bilateral stimulation, it is balancing the left and the right side of the brain. So it calms things down. So take a break now and just check in. And now's when I would ask you, what was your number before? What is it now?
So I am very hesitant to say this, but I've had some business stuff going on recently that I was really probably an 8 or a 9 on the stress level. And in that moment, when you were talking about it initially, I was like, Yeah. Okay. No, that's right up there. I can feel it like right here. And then when you started doing that, I'm sitting there. I'm like, I feel cooler. I feel more relaxed. I do feel that. Like that was pretty good. That's pretty impressive for just a random thing on a Thursday night. That was pretty good.
Is it almost like a classical conditioning? Like, because you're taking something that gives you anxiety, but while you're thinking about that anxious thing, you're doing something that is calming and centering and brings you back to earth and makes it less fearful. So it's linking,
a lot of people will say,
linking that calming thing to that thought, like a classical condition.
I just clucked like a chicken. Was I supposed to do that?
Yes, you were.
All the way in Japan.
I was. So a lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, it's just because it was distracting. But it isn't just that it's distracting. It's literally, we're rewiring the brain. Mm-hmm. And that's where I used to be. All right. So understand, in the mid 90s is when I experienced my insomnia. And I don't know if you guys know, I have it in, thank you, Sia. I have it in my book. Talk about one of the not highlights of my life when I found myself smashing the shit out of a bag of Cheetos while my kids are crying because I did not know what to do. I was like, you know, what do I do? So thank God I was smashing the Cheetos and not my kids. And so back then, this is the mid 90s. I was like, okay, I got medication. It worked and then it stopped.
Yeah.
Excuse my potty mouth here, but what do I do now? So I started going to the library to do research. There was not very much research on what I can go on and on about now. Mm-hmm. You know, I was getting cassette tapes out of the library, right? So, and we would talk about research, my eyes would glaze over. Right. Now that I am really get into and understand that we can rewire our brains like that. If you think about it, and I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask you to share anything, but if you just think about it in your own life, you know, chances are pretty good that you had some kind of a traumatic experience. So it doesn't take a long time and a lot of hard work to wire in a trauma experience. Yeah. So why would it take a long time to rewire it, to let that go and go into something different?
Well, so it's funny you say that, Stephanie, and it's something that I have with a lot of people. So and I've said this for years, and I've taken a lot of flack over it, is that I struggle with, you know, the clinical diagnosis of everyone's got anxiety, everyone's got depression, everyone's got all that sort of thing. I struggle with that because I just don't operate on that. Like I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety. I have anxious moments. I have depressive, like, oh, fuck, today's what a day, right? But right. I don't have that problem. So for me, it's hard to conceptualize someone that literally cannot get out of bed. And I often go back to, what can you do to help yourself? If you stay in bed, maybe bed's not a great place, but let's get out of bed. But for me, when I have those issues, I think naturally I do some of the things that you're talking about. And I try to get to that, I'm going to call it like a dissociation, to compartmentalize, right? Right. Yes. To compartmentalize those things so that I can handle them. And obviously everyone has had traumatic things in their life, right? Is that having, I agree with you, Patrick. I'm working on empathy too. That's the problem, is that I am, and I don't understand it, but I try to understand it. It's just one of those things that I struggle with. And someone like yourself, who you've had your problems, you have your life, your family, your all the things that go into that now helps you help other people because you've been through it.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that I do share some of the shit that I've been through. I am a non-drinker for about 1.5 years now, and I can say about 1.5 years because I didn't do it through AA. I didn't do it through, going to rehab or whatever. Oh, surprise. I stopped with hypnosis. Wow. I was drinking every freaking night, and then I wasn't. Yep. That was it. It can be that easy. And I share that because, especially with drinking and addictions and stuff, oh my God, there's so much shame and embarrassment around that. So when I go, hey, guess what? I have been a non-smoker for 30 some years now. I stopped drinking alcohol a year and a half ago.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
I've been through, all it was tough with my husband, right? That was a really tough period of my life. But so by sharing, okay, I've been through this, but it doesn't mean that I can only help you if I've been through it, because, I don't have a fear of flying, and I was able to help Sarah. I don't have, a fear of driving or a fear of shots or whatever. Sippy sippies. You don't have a problem with sippy sippies, and I did.
Right.
And I did not share that, for a long time. I mean, one of my closest friends was absolutely shocked because she said, "You never told me. I didn't know."
Mhm.
And it was because I had so much shame and embarrassment around it.
Right.
Um,
So so we've done a number of podcasts about addiction recovery. We talked with Bob McCabe, who is who is an alcoholic, self-admitted an alcoholic. He's done like the big book, the AA. We had Red Roof Recovery. We kind of really took on addiction at one point during this podcast, and a lot of it stemmed from these past traumas that these individuals had in their life. So, Stephanie, when you have somebody walk in the door, say myself or James, we walk in the door and it's like, I'm an alcoholic. You have AA, you have, the behavior management techniques that are out there. What is it that you sit down? Is it just throwing a water bottle back and forth, or what are you doing next after that?
No. So first of all, look at the success rates. And if AA has helped you, bless you. And I am not slamming you. I'm really not. Okay. One size doesn't fit all. People have to find their own way. But the percentage of people who go to AA and stay sober, the percentage of people who go into rehabs, did either of you see the movie Dope Sick?
No.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very good movie.
It's Pat, so it's about the opioid crisis and the Sacklers. And Michael Keaton was the star of it. And I will never forget this line. And anybody who saw the movie will know exactly where I'm going with this. They're in the little common room or whatever. And how many times have you been to rehab? Oh, how many times have you been to rehab? How many times have you been to rehab? It is $1 billion industry, and it is set up to have you be in that revolving door. And AA, if it works for you, that's great, but it hasn't changed for however many years it's been around, and it's not a fucking disease.
That is a hot button topic. You are like shots fired. Now,
so we had a show talking. We had the lady from Red Roof Recovery who does cognitive
behavioral
therapy.
Yeah, cognitive behavior therapy, and Bob McCabe, who was all about AA, and they got heated at one point because of shots fired like that. So
you told me I could. So
you can do whatever you want. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I agree with you. Like Weight Watchers, AA. Those things are great. It gives you a platform that you can talk, that you can share, but you're not dealing with the core reason. Like I've never gone to AA. I've never, other than food, I haven't had those big addictions to alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. But until I figured out why I ate, I really understood the trauma behind why I ate. I did not stop eating. So I was 300.
Not all addictions are rooted in big trauma. All right.
Sorry?
Not all addictions are rooted in deep trauma.
Oh no, that's true. That's true. Some people are prone to do it for sure.
Well, I kind of disagree with the.
What do you think there? Because I would agree with you. So tell us what you think. How do you come up with that?
How do I come up with what?
Well, so what you're saying there is that it doesn't have to be a deep-seated, rooted trauma that causes, these overt addictions. Because I tend to agree with that. With what you're saying, I don't think you had to be abused. Nobody had to be mean to you. There doesn't have to be something. It can just become a pattern in your life, and you're there.
Right, and that's the key. The pattern part. It is. Okay. You're having a couple, you're having a couple, you're having a couple too many, you're having a couple too many. What are you doing? You're wiring it into your brain that this is how we are habituating our actions, right? So if we can wire in without having to go to meetings or blah, 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 if we can wire in this pattern that's not serving us, why should it be hard for us to wire in something differently? I had again, a young guy, and they're not typically, my typical clients, but I had a young guy in his early 20s that I had met his mother, and she said, he's been in and out of rehab, and we just can't afford to send him to rehab again. Is there anything you can do? I said, well, I can't promise anything, but I'll see. I spoke to her sometime in the past 6 months or so, and that probably had to be at least 10 years ago. He hasn't had a drop to drink since we worked together. He has held a job for all this time. He got married. He has a stepdaughter. And it was about rewiring, right? For him, he did have a traumatic experience. And okay, you have a traumatic experience, I'm the gal to come to, because it doesn't matter. You can come to me with a big T trauma, which, we can assume what those are, or you can come to me for a little T trauma. And those are the ones that people like, wait, what? Yeah. So Sarah, the one who is now the 5-foot traveler, she didn't have this big trauma. She had a little bit of it. It was a little T trauma. Okay, we resolved it. He had a big T trauma. Okay, we resolved it. But it doesn't always, when I talk about the little T trauma, the big T trauma, the one who comes to mind is a 14-year-old girl that I worked with who came to me through the same pediatrician for her fear of dogs. Mm-hmm. And so I was already working, I had already closed my office. She was local. So I said to the mom, I work online. We'll do the first couple of sessions online. And then when I know she's good, I want you to bring her to my house for our last session, because I want her first interaction with the dog to be Maggie, my therapy dog, who is down here on the floor with me. So you would think, girl's got a fear of dogs. She probably got bit by a dog or something like that when she was little, right?
That's what you think. Yeah.
Nope. It was in the fall. She was a brand new freshman at high school, and there was a party for Halloween, and she wanted to go to this party, but there was going to be a dog there. That's what prompted her to finally, mom to finally bring her to me. So she is a cheerleader, a competitive cheerleader. And again, she's a freshman in high school, beginning of the school year. We're not working on anything to do with her cheerleading. I'm focusing on getting her over her fear of dogs. Well, she comes back after the first session. She goes, it was remarkable. I did a backflip in front of my coach that I'd never been able to do before. Now, I was not talking to her about her cheerleading, right? Yeah. After the second session, I knew she was good. I knew she was good with the dogs. And, oh, by the way, she got a spot on the varsity cheerleading team.
That's cool.
Freshmen don't get on the varsity teams, right? So third session, she comes here. Mom comes back to pick her up. She's got tears going down her face because the girl's sitting on my couch petting Maggie, my therapy dog. So it had nothing to do with the dog. Right. It goes back to little T trauma when she was like 4 or 5 years old, maybe, at her very first dance recital. All that pressure from her mother had morphed into this performance anxiety, which nobody knew about at the time. I get a text from the mom the day after the party saying, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I go, she didn't text me. I get there, and not one, not two, but 3 dogs are walking around this party, and she's just having a good time. Then she texts me a couple of weeks later, and she goes, oh, by the way, she stopped throwing up on game days, on competition days. Nobody had told me this girl was throwing up. because she was so anxious, but we were able to resolve it. So I don't know, maybe they got a dog, a dog is a house pet now, but it's really almost like detective work. And my intuition is so strong that I'm able to really hone in and find, okay, if you think about gardening, you get weeds in the garden. I used to be the one who would like clip it off, just go in and snip it off. And of course it would grow back. So what you have to do is get in there and get it out by the root. And when you get the root out, then you've got room for what you want to plant. So in your own life, where are the weeds in your life? And what do you want instead? Again, what is it you're dealing with that you don't want anymore? We only make change for two reasons. We want to get away from something, or we want to move towards something. I don't want to help you get away from something. I want to help you move towards what you want. I want to help you create the life that you can really live and love. And I'm at a point in my life, I'm 63. I don't hide it, right? I couldn't hide it if I wanted to. But I'm at a point now where I live a really good, joyful life. And so, let me help you find that too. And long before you're 63, if I can.
Right.
Do you so you were talking about, it sounds like when people come to you, it sounds like it's much like counseling. When people come to you with a problem, it might not even be the problem they think it is. Like you just described, she was afraid of dogs, but it was a performance anxiety. I've noticed that with kids that I work with, that what they're actually upset about or worried about has very little to do with what the actual problem is. So are you, through the hypnotism, are you doing a form of counseling? Are you like trying to center in on the core problem? Are you purposely uncovering the little t, the big T, or the core reason that this problem exists? Or are you trying to create a new feeling to what they want to do?
Yes, and.
Okay.
Yes, and is my answer to it.
Okay.
So I'm very, very clear that I am not a mental health counselor. I am very, very clear about that. Yeah. I stick in my lane, and if there's something that's outside my scope of practice, I either will refer them out or ask for a physician or a counselor's referral. Just saying, yes, I think this is okay. We don't always have to get to the root cause of it. Sometimes that's what's necessary, but not always. And so that's where, again, if I relied on scripts, I'd be screwed, right? Because, how would I have ever had a script for, fear of dogs that translated to actually it was performance anxiety? Right. And, there's also, you got to be careful. And this is where I am kind of on a fence as far as, and I don't know in Canada what the rules are for practicing hypnosis, but in the States, every state, it's different. Oh. And so, there's talk about, we should license and blah, blah, blah. And, there's a big part of me that's like, oh no, I don't want that, because the people who are going to make the decisions of that don't know what I know. Right? They don't know what I know. But then at the same time, there's like the guy who was, with the 100% guaranteed, come back and I'm going to read you the same quit smoking script, and then I'll see you next month for no additional money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So when you talk about the performance stuff, so my daughter's a pretty good athlete. She's a competitive gymnast, and now she's an excellent rugby player. She's gotten older, and she plays at very competitive levels. And there were whole processes where they were bringing sports psychologists in, and they were talking about the team and the developmental phases. And, as parents, we got to kind of flush some questions out. But, like my daughter, she was a young lady, 11, 12, 13 years old at the time. And, what does changing bodies look like? How does that work? What are these things? And one of the questions that I brought up was, okay, so how do you put an 11 or 12-year-old little girl in an outfit that is basically a big, a swimsuit? You're going to put her up on a beam in front of 1,000 people, and you're expecting her not to have some sort of body image problem. And my daughter is like 5'11". She grew like weed overnight over last summer, really. And she went from like 5'3" to like 5'11" in like a year and a half, almost like less than 2 years. And for her, there's a lot of body image stuff that went along with that. And that was the thing that it ended her gymnastics career. It ended her career. And now she coaches. So that's what she does all summer now. She's 14 years old now. And she works and operates her previous gym where she competed out of, the coaching. But you can tell she misses the competition stuff, but she's also okay to let it go. And that's where it's funny, because I wish someone like you was out there locally here to be able to deal with her and be like, hey, is there still that opportunity? Is there something to do? But it sounds like you've solved that problem with your online piece. How do you do that with online? What kind of tools do you use? And how does that work with the online presence? Because it sounds like you've done it for a lot of years.
Oh yeah, it's 8 years now that I've been online. Well, because it doesn't matter. If we don't have to be laying down on a couch, in this relaxed position to go into hypnosis, we're not relaxed when we're driving, right? And we're experiencing highway hypnosis. So we don't have to be in person. And actually with the kids, pre-COVID, it was the kids who were really into, oh, cool, you do this on the computer, right? Because that was, again, cutting edge technology. And us, the old farts, were like, what do you mean they're doing this online? And I had people, in 2020 calling me and saying, well, it's not in person, that won't work. Well, right. No, if you believe it won't work, it won't work. Henry Ford said years ago, whether you think you can or think you can't,
you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that your daughter had those issues, the body issues. I think is a real testament to you and her mother that she's now coaching and she's okay. It sounds like she's doing well. But again, for me, it would be, and my dear friend, who's also kind of my, a business advisor, keeps telling me I need to record myself when I'm doing sessions, because I go somewhere. I go somewhere. I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm doing, because early in my career, when I started, I had a set pattern. We start here, we do this, we move here, we do this, da, 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 da. And I don't even remember. It wasn't like it was one moment where it happened, but gradually it was like all of a sudden it was like, okay, fuck the structure. Just get in the moment. To you, James, just get in the moment and you'll know what to do.
Yep.
And I do.
Have trust.
Okay, Trust Fall, baby. That is my favorite song right now. I've been playing it over and over and over again, because you saw, I think you saw my video last week, James.
I did. Yeah.
Jumped off the airplane last week. I did the ultimate trust fall. Oh my gosh. So I did that trust fall physically, but when I did that trust fall at the beginning of my career, that's when I really started seeing amazing miracles.
That's cool.
Where, again, get into imposter syndrome. I had serious imposter syndrome those first couple of years, because people would come in and, they'd been smoking for 40 years and they'd walk out and never have a cigarette again. And I'm like, did I do that? Wait, what? Yeah, I did it. And I also, at that point, I was like, I'm so about empowering my clients. I never let them think that I did all the work, because I don't. I can't do the work without you, right? But I was always pushing, oh, look what you did, look what you did, look what you do. And no. It's a co-creative process, right? So when I let go of the structure, when I got out of my own way, every session, even from with the same person, every session is different, and I can't tell you where it's going to go, because I'm tapping in. With my higher mind, I'm tapping into your higher mind and being guided where we go.
Right.
So back to Sarah, the crippling fear of flying, now the 5-foot traveler. Her mother said, we know exactly when it started. Well, if during the hypnosis part, I focused on that, okay, let's go to that time, blah, 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 she wouldn't be the 5-foot traveler.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So Stephanie, how does somebody get in touch with you? And then I've got a final question before we leave. So plug us. How are people getting in touch with you? And what does that look like?
Okay, StephanieDelfonso.com. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of URLs here. You can get my book, Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom, on Amazon. It's not even designed to be read cover to cover. You see how thin this is? It's read the first 2 short chapters, peruse the table of contents, pick a couple of techniques and action them. If you don't want to pony up the $14.95 for the book, go to ibringcalm.com. I'll send you 5 of the techniques. And I am so very excited. I've wanted to do this for years. I'm starting a group coaching program next month where I'm doing 2 live calls a month. Where you can get one-on-one coaching. You'll go through some of the techniques in the book, but you got problems, you show up. It is a very affordable way to do it. And if you sign up in the next week, I will do a customized meditation, hypnosis meditation for you if you sign up in the next week. So all kinds of fun stuff. And you and I know each other now from LinkedIn. You find me on LinkedIn. I'm putting videos. I'm doing 1 technique a week on video on LinkedIn, and I'm also doing in my newsletter. And if you sign up for the group program or to get the 5 techniques, you'll get on my newsletter list, and every week you'll get a new video, a new technique.
Perfect. Well, everyone out there, check out Stephanie. She's doing some pretty cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Yeah, I think I got to hit Amazon here when we get off. Now, my last question, and then what we do at the end of these, we have this kind of, I have a slogan, James has got a slogan, and we sign off. And we kind of said to you when we first started that there's no gotcha questions. There's nothing like that. But tonight, but we ask you to leave us with a word of wisdom. So my first question is, and then we'll get to our little sign-offs, is how do you take hypnotism and can you apply it in the business world? Or is there in the business environment that is out there right now, that high pace craziness, how can you help those folks?
Okay, so one of the testimonials somewhere on my website is, after working with Stephanie for just a couple of weeks, I brought $20,000 worth of new business into my business. And this was funny. She was a Canadian. She was the breadwinner in her family and sweating because she had no business coming in, and how was she going to pay her mortgage? So with business, it's simply about, first of all, getting the hell out of your own way, because, we all know as entrepreneurs, oh my gosh, this is not for the faint of heart. So, if somebody's interested in, trying to excel in their business, I can help make it easy. And it's not, don't worry, I'm not going to be like, okay, now tell me your deepest, darkest traumas from childhood. Yeah. I'm not, like counseling, therapy, it's all talking. I don't want to mess around. I don't want to.
See, I like that. I like your methodology. I like that. Because
I would be bored hearing my shit. Right. I don't want to sit and talk and talk and talk. It's like, I don't know. Do you have carpool lanes in Canada?
We do. Yep.
Okay. So then you'll get this, right? You have a choice. You can be bumper to bumper traffic over here, or let's go get in the carpool lane. I want to get in the carpool lane and take you where you want to go and get you there fast.
I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. Stephanie, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope to have you on again, because I think that it's a really cool thing. Yeah. And, maybe even going through some of the stuff where we have a bit of a work through, and it sounds like you've got some options for people out there that are affordable. You got a fantastic book. All of you out there, check it out. She's doing some really neat things, and obviously a fantastic guest tonight. So from me, thank you. And as always, folks, let's make some money together. James.
Stephanie, I love that you were on our show. I heard so much about you, and I was told by so many wonderful people like Sia and Mike that you're the person that we need to talk to, and they weren't wrong. They're never wrong. I love what you're doing. Anytime that people are helped and their lives are changed, that's a story I want to tell. And I'm glad we were able to share your story, because you're doing amazing work and helping amazing people. And the way you explain it is in such a way that it is very digestible, very understandable. Even if you don't know anything about hypnotism, I feel like now we do. We have a little bit more. And I love your opinion on it. And I also like the fact that you're not about bringing people back. Not about, you know what, I'm not about, you know what, in a month, come back to me, I'll hypnotize you again. You're about, we're going to solve this, and we're going to do it in a planned way. And it's going to be a solution, not a recurring revolving door. And I love that. Profiteers out there, I'm so happy you joined. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to put in there that obviously this is how I make my living, but it's not about, oh, let me get you in here and oh, come back in a month so I can get more money. It's when I help you change your life, it changes the world.
Absolutely.
I love it.
That's an amazing sentiment. It's lovely. Profiteers out there. Next week, we have the beautiful Leah, who's the president of Angel Heart Communications. It's going to be one of those hard-hitting topics that we've delved into. We've kind of done something similar to this. Her primary focus is supporting victims and survivors, as well as faith community leaders, with respect to situations of clergy sexual abuse. We've had those topics here before. It is a hard-hitting, it's a hard topic, but she's going to lead the way and teach us what she does and how she is changing the world, because that's what we're all about here at Soaring Profits, either how we motivate ourselves or how we help other people. Stephanie, you're one of those people. I love you. I think you're fantastic. You're now officially a profiteer for life. You're one of us. And everybody out there, go get your goals. If you're struggling right now, you can't quit smoking, you're afraid of dogs, you're afraid of something, or maybe you're being held back in business because you have that anxiety of, I can't take the next step. That lady right there, she's going to help you out. So contact her. Let's heal our minds, bodies, and souls together.
And this is where you wrap us up. Give us some words of wisdoms and send us on our way tonight, Stephanie.
Wherever you are, just take the first step. That's all you got to do. Just take the first step.